So the San Antonio Spurs are known as one of the best franchises in NBA history. And unless you want to start in the ABA days, their franchise really begins with their acquisition of one of the best players ever in David Robinson. Now Robinson and the crew could never really get over the hump until they acquired Tim Duncan, who was a top 10 player in league history, with him being one of the most defensively dominant players in league history. And with that, combined with him being a great offensive player, it led to Timmy D winning 5 championships with the Spurs organization during his career. Robinson was only a part of 2 of these championship teams, but Tony Parker, on the other hand, won a lot more with the Spurs, with him actually winning a Finals MVP too, with him being one of the most crafty point guards of all time. And to round out Duncan and Parker, there was Manu Ginobili, who is widely considered the greatest sixth man in league history, who could do pretty much anything on a basketball court. And after many championships and successful years with the core 3, the Spurs struck gold when they traded for Kawhi Leonard on draft night in 2011. And with hard work and the help of coach Greg Popovich, Kawhi played a key role in the Spurs 2014 title run, with him winning Finals MVP after playing great offensively, but most importantly, playing great defense on LeBron James. And so Kawhi was hailed the next great San Antonio Spur by many NBA fans. But after a string of weird injuries that kept him sidelined for a while, he wanted out of San Antonio. And he was dealt to the Raptors, where he won a championship, but unfortunately for us, our team hasn't seen that much success since Kawhi's departure. But as you can tell, something exciting is happening in San Antonio from Coach Popovich, and that something is, of course, Victor Wembanyama, as we took him with the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, but more on him later. As we head to free agency, we look to bring back Devin Vassell, Zach Collins, and Trey Jones because they're valuable pieces for our young core. But now, the man in the thumbnail and the greatest prospect since LeBron James, Victor Wembanyama. There's not much to be said that hasn't already been said a plethora of times, but for the sake of time, he has the potential to be one of the greatest players in NBA history due to his touch and instincts at his towering 7'5" frame. Then we also have other intriguing young players like Keldon Johnson, who averaged about 22 points per game last season on good to decent efficiency, but unfortunately for us, it didn't lead to much team success. And then there's Devin Vassell, who is one of my personal favorite young players in the league and has the potential to be a great 3-and-D player, sort of the same vein as Danny Green. We also have Jeremy Sohan, who will be a second-year player coming off of a rocky rookie season, but has shown flashes of offensive and defensive versatility for us. But he has a long way to go before he can reach that ceiling. And I'm already looking at getting more help for Wemby in free agency, and we do so by signing Gary Trent Jr. to a long-term deal. And this will help our team out tremendously, with Trent being one of the best sharpshooters in the league, which will open up the floor for the rest of the team. And this is what player progression looks like for us right now, with a lot of our guys progressing pretty nicely so far. And this is what our rotation looks like for season number 1, with Wemby getting the most PT on the team, but the minutes being spread out pretty evenly. And as we start to simulate, you'll see the team being somewhat up and down, with us playing in an ultra-competitive Western Conference, and us having a near 500 record at the deadline, which is an improvement from last season's tank job in order to get Wemby, and us having a lot of quality wins under our belt, with wins over teams such as the Mavericks, the Warriors, and the Nuggets, but we're still not as consistent as we need to be in order to contend seriously in this conference. If we look at the standings out west of the deadline, we're a play-in team, and in other good news, we're only 3.5 games behind the 1 seed in the historically tight playoff race. And in somewhat surprising news, Devin Vassell is shooting the lights out while being our leading scorer. And Wemby is looking amazing in his rookie campaign up to this point, with him already being one of the best all-around players in the league while being hella efficient as well. If we look at Keldon Johnson, his scoring numbers have dipped from last season, but that's to be expected with the new acquisitions of Wemby and Gary Trent Jr. And speaking of Trent, he's putting up decent scoring numbers, but on pretty bad efficiency, but I'm sure that's likely to change. Malachi Branham, he's arguably even better than Trent so far, because his efficiency and scoring numbers are almost the same. Looking at Jeremy Sohan, he's taken a pretty nice jump from his rookie campaign. And in probably the biggest surprise of anyone on the team, Zach Collins is actually being lights out efficient, and he's already made 82 3-pointers. And Trey Jones is shooting god-awful from the field so far, which isn't good. And our other backups, Wesley and Bassie, are shooting pretty well from the field in their limited minutes. But we clearly need some help. So when I was looking around the league at possible candidates, I stumbled upon Cam Thomas, who's having a great season. And if we're looking at the Nets' current situation, they're not doing that well, so they don't really need him right now. So if we trade a couple of assets and take on Patty Mills' expiring contract, that should be enough to get this deal done. I believe Cam Thomas can be a great piece for us going forward, with him still being relatively young and him already being a certified bucket getter in this league. So here's what our updated rotation looks like, with Tre Jones now being off the team and some people playing positions that they normally don't play, but it'll be okay. And as we simulate past the trade deadline, you'll start to notice that we start to sort of fall off a cliff, which is expected with young teams and a great Western Conference that we're in, with no real championship aspirations and contending status up to this point in the video. And surprisingly, James Harden turns back the clock and goes out and wins an MVP. But what we care about is that Victor Wembanyama won Rookie of the Year, and with one of the best rookie seasons of all time. And if we look at our player stats at the end of the season, everyone's scoring numbers went down, but that's expected to happen with more mouths to feed. And as we simulate the playoffs, James Harden wins Finals MVP and completely rewrites the narrative of his career. And in the next year's lottery, we seem to strike gold, having the number 2 and 3 overall selections in the upcoming draft because of a previous trade with Charlotte and us missing out on the playoffs. And owning these 2 picks got me thinking that it's pretty redundant to draft 2 young players with us already having a plethora of them on the roster. So why don't we go out and trade for a bona fide all-star such as Karl Anthony Towns? I'd be willing to throw in the 2nd overall pick in this deal, but I would also like some other compensation, so I decided to try to trade for Jaden McDaniels, who's a great young 3D player in this league. But they declined at first, but they want one more first for us, and I'm fine with that, so we get that done. And we still own the number 3 overall pick in this year's draft. And as we take a look at the prospects, I don't see anyone too intriguing at first, but as you can see on the thumbnail, I'm eyeing Bronny James. And with Devin Vassell playing out of position, I think he'd be a great use on our team, with him already having a great outside game and good playmaking, which we desperately need on this team. So we take him, and we bring everyone back at team player options, and we decide to give Devin Vassell the qualifying offer because he had a great season. And with that great season that he had last season, we decide to give him the bag and to extend him for a long-term deal so he doesn't go anywhere. And this was really our only significant move at this year's free agency because we don't have a lot of spare cap room after giving him this extension. And if we take a look at player progression, everyone's going up. That's great. All our young guys are progressing well, and Wemby he's looked like he's becoming a bona fide superstar. And our team should be looking significantly better with our recent acquisitions of Cat and Jay McDaniels. And Cat, I think, is the perfect piece next to Wemby in the front court because he's a great scorer, while Wemby is a great scorer and defender. And while McDaniels isn't a great offensive player, he's a great defensive player who's improving on the offense. Then there's Bronny, who I think has all the physical tools and resources, aka his dad's mentorship, to be a great facilitator. And this is what our rotation is looking like going into season 2, with Towns immediately starting, but McDaniels coming off the bench because we kind of have a logjam at the 4 position. And as we begin to simulate, we kind of have a rocky start because I'm sure of getting used to the fit next to Towns and McDaniels, but as we further along progress through the season, we see that we are around the top of the Western Conference right now, and at the trade deadline, we are number 2 in the conference, which is great. And as we take a look at the current state of the Western Conference, it's, another tight race like last year. Looking at the individual player statistics at the trade deadline, we see that Cat is our leading scorer on amazing all-time efficiency, while Wemby is doing his thing as well. Wemby putting up great offensive and defensive stats and sort of making up for the lack of defense that Cat, may not bring to the table. But I knew these two would be a match made in heaven. And looking at Devin Vassell, he's doing more of the same as he did last year, putting up great stats on great efficiency, which is what we need from him. Gary Trent has also upped his efficiency from last year while bringing his signature great scoring punch for us. The person that I'm sort of worried about, though, is Keldon Johnson. Yes, his efficiency is still pretty good, but his scoring numbers have kind of dropped off a cliff. And if he can't really score that well for us, he's not great at anything else, so we might look to trade. And so far into Bronny's rookie campaign, he's not shooting the best from the field, but better than Tre Jones last year, while putting up better statistics. Jaden McDaniels is doing everything I kind of asked from him. He's, shooting well from the field, while being, great on the defensive end. I can't ask much more from him. In more disappointing news, though, Jeremy Sohan's efficiency has gotten somehow worse from the previous season, so we might look to trade him. Then there's Cam Thomas, who is, shooting well efficiency-wise, but not really getting that big of a chance because we have so many people on this team, but his per 36 numbers are looking pretty good for us. Same sort of thing could be said for Malachi Branham, with his efficiency being good, but him not getting a lot of shots because of all the scores on this team. But we're still one of the best teams in the NBA, so I'm not looking to make any moves at the deadline, and as you simulate through the regular season, we finish as the 6th best team in the conference. And at the end of the season, if we look at the end of the season awards, we see Wemby making his first All-NBA team with him putting up amazing numbers. And we also see Bronny making an All-Rookie team, which is great as well. And looking at the end of the season stats, nothing significant changes. And our first round matchup is the Golden State Warriors, which is pretty scary considering Steph Curry is still amazing and they have an emerging Jonathan Kuminga too on their team. And as we simulate game 1, we take it off the back of a surprising all-time great performance from Keldon Johnson, with him shooting 10 from 11 from the field and dropping 26 points, while everyone else played pretty well and held Steph Curry accountable. But the same cannot be said for game 2, as Curry has a 37-point triple-double and Wemby continues to struggle in the series. In game 3, we take it. Wemby finally wakes up and has a great game, while Towns and company have great games as well. But Golden State's not going out without a fight, as they blow us out in game 4, which is not a good sign for us, with Curry putting up 50 points. And in game 5, the Warriors take it again, and Curry at this point is just proving why he's an all-time great player. And the Dubs close out the series in 6 games after Curry was the best player in the series by far, and Wemby and the crew struggled mightily. So we have some things to look forward to adjust in the offseason. And this year's champion was the Cleveland Cavaliers. And looking at the next season's lottery, we see that we have a plethora of picks this year, with us having 7 picks in total in the draft. And with all this draft capital, it got me thinking about trading up to the 4th overall pick to a struggling team such as the Charlotte Hornets, who desperately need assets for the future. And with that 4th overall pick, I decided to take Trey Johnson, who fell to us at 4 and is arguably the best player in this draft class, and he should have a lot of value for us going forward through this rebuild. And no significant moves were made in free agency. We just kind of decided to run it back with the team that we had, and if we look at player progression, everyone is progressing nice, no one's really upset, which is always a great sight to see to keep your players happy. And this is what our rotation is going to look like for season 3 so far, with us having a lot of great talent on this team, so we're forced to run an 11-man rotation. And something must have just started clicking right away, because we already look like one of the best teams in the NBA as we keep progressing through the season, with us, hovering around the 1st or 2nd spot by the time the trade deadline rolls around, with us already having 45 wins. And if we look at the stats, who else could be our leading scorer besides Wemby, who has fully established himself as one of the best players in all of the NBA so far this early into his young career. And as a secondary option, we see Cat averaging almost 20 points on 50-40-90 splits as a 7-foot power forward, which is remarkable. And Devin Vassell doing what he always does, just shooting 40% from 3 while being a great 3-and-D player. Gary Trent has also significantly improved his efficiency, while his volume has gone down a little bit, but that's great for him and the overall team. And in Bronny's sophomore season, we see him improving statistically and efficiency-wise, which is perfect and right on track for him. And other great news, Jaden McDaniels has improved his scoring, and his efficiency is skyrocketed from last season. Sadly, however, we see Keldon Johnson scoring go down again, while his efficiency is still pretty good, so we might look to ship him out. The same sort of thing can be said about Jeremy Sohan, because his efficiency has improved, but he's still not putting up great stats at all. And if we look at our rookie Trey Johnson, he's already up to an 84 overall, but he isn't getting a lot of touches right now. And the same thing is happening to Cam Thomas right now, because we have just so much talent and so many scores on this team, but we might look to make a move. And the same thing, again, could be said for Malachi Branham, because he's not getting a lot of opportunity. And going back to the idea of a trade, we see the Utah Jazz at the bottom of the conference, and they have Tyrese Maxey, who is only averaging 14 points per game, with him being a 90 overall. So I decided to throw them our rookie, Keldon Johnson, and Jeremy Sohan in a blockbuster trade to give us a bona fide star to really fill out our roster and open up some more playing time for guys who are deserving of that. And after we just looked at our updated rotation, we simulate the rest of the season with us already, comfortably being the best team in the conference. And as we further progress, after just dominating teams with us putting up 163 points against the Suns, we finished with a 63-19 regular season record. Shout out LaMelo Ball for having a crazy MVP season. But if we look at Victor Wembanyama, he makes an All-NBA second team on damn near 50-40-90 splits as a center with excellent defense, which is great. And everyone's stats looks good, and actually scoring output increased, which is great to see. And in the first round, we will have a rematch of last year's first round matchup in the Golden State Warriors, with Steph Curry still looking great and Jonathan Kuminga ever improving to damn near superstar level. However, for them, we take game one off the back of a 2020 game from Wemby, and we seem to contain Curry to only 21 points in the first game, with their center, John Bol, having an awful game guarding Wemby. And we lose a close one in the second game, but I'm not too worried about it. These things happen, especially against a great team like the Warriors. But their center, John Bol, is still having a rough time guarding Wemby. And we take game three with Curry and Kuminga playing well, but we just seem like the better overall team at this point. And in game four, the Warriors take, so maybe I have to eat my words because Jonathan Kuminga drops a 49-point game while Curry had a 34-10 game, while Wembanyama struggled. And in game 5, we seem to get back on track and take it with a pretty balanced effort from everyone. But in game 6, we do lose to Golden State after Curry puts up a 55-point double-double. But we move on to the next round after an all-around performance and triple-double from Wembanyama and Curry kind of choking. Our second round matchup, however, is the Portland Trail Blazers, with Dame being like 36 at this point and coming off the bench. So I'm not really too concerned about them, especially after game 1 where Dame didn't really do much and Amen Thompson only had 6 points. However, the Blazers just simply outscore us in game 2 after a pretty good balanced effort from our team, but their guys just scored more. And at this point, we actually lose game 3 and we're down 2-1 after Jalen Duren is actually kind of bodying Wemby. And now we're in deep trouble. We are down 3-1 after game 4. But after game 5, we get back on track. Wemby really goes out there and shines a 37-point triple-double, and we win game 6 after really containing all their players. And in game 7, we find a way to come back 3-1. And I accidentally simulated the first 3 games of the conference finals, but the Rockets, they're a good team with Scoot progressing great and Kyrie coming off the bench for some reason, but we were just a better team, and now we're in the finals against the juggernaut Boston Celtics team, which somehow has LeBron James on it, which would never happen because LeBron hates the fans of Boston. But anyway, we take game 1 after LeBron and Tatum don't have a good game. We take game 2 after Vassell is just continuing to have a great finals run, and we're just simply the better team, I feel like. And game 3, we win. Wemby had a great triple-double, and he's playing out of his mind in the playoffs. And as we jump into game 4 at Boston, we blow them out and ultimately win the NBA championship. What's the funniest thing about this whole championship thing? We see LeBron dapping up Tyrese Maxey and Wemby, but his son's nowhere to be found, so he must be pissed at him for some reason. And we see Adam Silver hands the championship trophy to Mike Stoffer, the GOAT coach at 2K, and Wemby is so tall you could barely see him for the Finals MVP ceremony. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.